We're super excited to talk through all the things that we learned last week at Google Cloud Next. Everyone here is still recovering. It's a super busy conference with a ton of stuff going on, a lot of walking, a lot of conversation. Some of us, the voices are still scratchy. I know that, like, looking at my steps on my phone, I averaged about 18,000 steps a day, which is good. Like, it's a great workout, but more than that, it's just a lot of exciting stuff happening, a lot of stuff to learn, a lot of sharing. So, my name is Brandon Carter. I'm the marketing director at Promevo, and I'm very glad to be your host today. Here's a quick glance at our agenda. Google Cloud had over 220 significant announcements last week, and we've sorted through the ones that we think are most significant and impactful to you, the end user who utilizes Google Cloud tools like Gemini and Vertex AI, Google Cloud Platform, Looker, BigQuery, Google Workspace. So as such, we've split the agenda into a few parts. We'll start off with the highest impact announcements across the board, just sort of like, hey, what's the big picture here? And then each of our experts is going to dive into what we think are the most significant announcements across cloud, AI, data analytics, and workspace. Let's meet our experts for today. Joining us live from Hawaii, where it's very early, is our Chief Technology Officer, John Petit. John, good morning.
Morning.
We're also joined by Aaron Gutierrez, who runs our data analytics practice and resident guru on all things Looker and BigQuery. Good morning, Aaron.
Morning.
And of course, those of you who attend our G-Panel webinars will recognize Mark Baquirin, who is also an expert on all things Google Workspace and all the announcements that they made around that particular product. So good morning, Mark.
Good morning.
All of us were on site for the duration of the event last week. We all came away with a ton of new things that we've learned, a lot of enthusiasm, and real excitement about where things are going. And you might be wondering, well, who is this we? All of you out here, some of you are clients and partners. Some of you have no idea who we are. You're just wanting to learn about Google Cloud Next. So Promevo, for those of you that are uninitiated, is a Google Cloud Premier Partner, which means we help companies like yours with all of your Google needs. Chrome OS devices like Chromebooks and Meet Kits, Google Cloud Platform, data analytics tools like BigQuery and Looker, Google Workspace, and of course, all of these different AI tools that they've built out. We'll sell it to you, we'll service it for you, we provide support, we give you someone to call. We're probably best known for G-Panel, which is our Google Workspace management platform that unlocks a ton of functions for your Google Workspace, including things like batch policy updates, automation, decommissioning recipes, integrations, and more. If you're not familiar with that one, be sure to check out our new website at gpanel.io to schedule your demo there. Let's talk a little bit about just Google Cloud Next from Promevo's perspective. So, what is Google Cloud Next? For those of you that don't know, it's Google's annual conference where, at least this year, 45,000 Google customers, partners, developers, employees, they all converge on the Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas for 4 days of learning, innovation, announcements. These are some of our highlights. Those of you that were there, hopefully you got one of our little llama plushies. We went through about 500 in about 2 days, and people were still coming up to me in the airport getting ready to leave Las Vegas, asking if they could have a llama. So a big hit. This thing on the right, that was obviously the Google CEO at the Sphere, talking about how Google Cloud partnered with like a film production company to recreate The Wizard of Oz for the Sphere using generative AI. Totally mind-blowing experience. It's interesting to see how they use technology to recreate, what was meant for a screen that was a rectangle and turn it into this like immersive experience. That's probably up on YouTube. I highly recommend checking that out. Of course, Promevo, we hosted a happy hour with a couple hundred of our closest friends. And over the course of a few days, I would guess we probably had about 1,000 people that stopped by the booth and picked up llamas or registered for our Lego giveaway. So again, if you were there, it was really great seeing all of you. A lot of energy, a lot of enthusiasm. Culminated Thursday night with a concert at Allegiant Stadium where the Raiders play, headlined by the Killers. But for me, the highlight was Wyclef Jean getting so into his set that he went over his allotted time, and eventually they had to pull him off the stage like Oscar style. just literally cutting his music and cutting the lights. If you didn't go this year and you're interested in going next year, reach out to us. We can help you. We can help you make your way to Google Next. All right, that's enough of me talking. Let's get into the meat of this thing. I wanted to start with a big high level takeaway, and we'll start with you, John. Like, what would you say was your large overall impression from Google Cloud Next this year?
Yeah, and I think, walkaway impression was this was all about AI. It was an AI conference more than a cloud conference. In the past, we were talking about like cloud migrations and things like that, and Web 2.0, and this was all about AI. Google, has done a tremendous job, I think, getting into and being known for AI over the last year. Inflection point was maybe October, November when we had Gemini 2.0 come out, and you had a very powerful comparable model to everything else that was out there that was more cost effective. And the things they showed with Gemini 2.5 at this conference are equally impressive. Also, it's not just the models that they're focusing on and the APIs. It's like the whole platform, right? They're doing the best job at integrating AI across their entire tech stack, their products, their cloud environment, anything out there. But super impressive stuff to see coming. Both products, AI models, tools, everything that you need to be in the AI space coming out of this conference.
Sure, we're definitely going to get into some of those here in just a second. But I'm curious, Mark or Aaron, what were your takeaways? Do you want to chime in?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention how I think Google is really getting better at telling the story of how AI is even useful to people, especially with the Wizard of Oz thing. Like, you wonder how that's done, right? Like, what kind of technologies are being done. In the presentation, they showed us how they're using Google tools and Google AI. So last year, the year before, I think a lot of people, they boiled AI down to just fancy autocomplete, right? Like something that can just build text. You put in a text prompt, gives you a response. But the stories are getting better. The examples are getting better with how they're using AI to do other things. I think they showed us some video tool. What is it called now?
Veo.
Yeah. That was really cool how that's improved so much over the initial tiny glimpse they showed us last year. It's actually pretty useful. And now I kind of caught myself watching like some of the presentations and being like, was that built with Veo or is this real? And I guess the other big takeaway for me was, how last year was just a rush to get to AI, or in years past, it's always been a rush. Just everyone wants to get their foot in the AI door. And it reminded me of a classic meme that you see sometimes when people skip steps on stuff. It's the one where the kid's just making a huge stretch over 4 steps, going up the staircase. And the one I saw that really made me laugh was the CEO taking a big step, just trying to get to AI and skipping a ton of important steps, like data preparation and security of your data and infrastructure, even things like that are necessary to do this. Well, I feel like the second takeaway from me was they really went back and addressed all of those intermediate steps, built in a lot of cool tooling to even prepare you to use the AI tools that is the eventual finish line of the race. So I think they did a great job, and it's making using it a lot easier for not just us developers, but people in the workspace side as well.
The practical application of AI for sure. Like, definitely came away with that. And John's going to show you a bunch of that stuff here in a second. Mark, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, speaking of the workspace side, as of January, Google had started to bake in Gemini into the different Google applications. And what they released here at Next, they've shown that they've continued to evolve and add more functionality, just giving workspace users even more tools and more ways to use Gemini and AI. So yeah, it was just an amazing thing to see and to be able to take part in all of that.
Yeah, some great, exciting stuff for Google Workspace that Mark will show everybody here in just a minute. But obviously, AI, it's all about AI. I mean, most things are about AI, but I think a good recap is this is AI like in use case in ways that are going to improve the lives of your employees and your clients, your customers, with increased productivity and a wider set of knowledge to pull from. Well, let's not talk about it. Let's get into it. I'm going to hand it over to John. We'll be chiming in on occasion, but John, if you can walk us through what are the big AI things that they're talking about?
Yeah, so first and foremost, Gemini 2.5 Pro, which is now available in public preview, is Google's deep reasoning model. So it can handle very complex tasks with high accuracy. It's not focused on speed of response, but quality of response. And interesting enough, they've claimed the #1 spot on the chatbot arena. So that chatbot arena is where users are rating models based on accuracy and quality of response. It's not just like, am I a human test or some of the other ones that people put out there. And they're doing it for things like code. They're doing it for things like, could I use this in a complex reasoning scenario where maybe it's legal or medical or other fields? And Google's, with their new models, claiming the #1 spot. On top of that, it's the million token context window, allowing you to pass in a ton of video, images, audio, textual data, and some file formats that it supports. Definitely sets it apart, right? It makes it so you can out of the box start building some very powerful systems, or begin to swap some of your systems into it in a more cost-effective way. So you compare it against the cost of some of the other models. Gemini is, again, going to be the #1 in terms of response and the #1 in terms of cost for you to be able to build your system. So super impressive to see some of the things they've done. And there's some things in there that I can talk about as we talk about it. They have a live API. So if you have a streaming application, maybe you're sending in samples of screenshots of live video, or you're sending in things like that, and you want it to continuously analyze and give you feedback. So applications where you're out there saying like, what's in this room? Or if you're somebody doing a home assessment, categorize everything in here and help me build, right, an appraisal, right? There's a lot of like practical applications that'll come out of a model that powerful. So super neat to see Google leading the way, and again, setting themselves apart with both on efficiency and cost. It's in public preview, so if you need access to it, you can work with Promevo or your Google sales rep or your connections there and get access to these if you wanted to start building or testing things around it. Also interesting is that they're experimenting with a 2 million token context window, which again is thousands of pages of text. It's like thousands of images. It's a lot of data.
I think you mentioned something really important that has advanced AI. That second bullet point, you mentioned reasoning. And to me, that's a huge step forward in AI. I remember even a year or so ago, if you look something up in AI and then you try to use that as proof, people would be like, you just use ChatGPT or whatever. That I don't believe that. That's fake. This is really similar to what happened with Wikipedia when it first came out. It was just a tool that, it existed. It was cool. It was an aggregator of everything, but is it trustworthy? I think some of the cool things that Gemini is doing now, in line with the deep research mode, is that it's showing its work. It's not just giving you blobs of text back. It's showing you where they came from. It's giving you like direct links to sources. So if you click on it, you can actually go see, the study that it referenced in the answer.
Yeah.
And to me, that's super important, because now, instead of being an untrustworthy, fake news source, Gemini is actually a perfect research tool that gives you like lots of things that would take you a lot of hours to do. It just kind of does that instantly. So even playing with it on my phone lately has been really nice, because it has that deep research feature built into just Gemini on the app. So it's just reliable and more useful as a tool now than it was when it first came out.
Definitely a game changer, and definitely puts Google not just at par, but over a lot of the common AI chatbots that people are using.
Yeah, credibility. It's important. Data and
Huge
stuff. So the fact that they like put it in line to the responses is pretty nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that grounding through the API to be able to say ground on the search results, where Google can shine with its like huge repository of website data, is pretty impressive, and how quick it still responds.
Yeah, I think that's cool.
Of quickness,
the Google search ability. I forgot about that part.
Yeah. And then speaking of quickness, Flash, right? So that's the model that's your everyday workhorse for Google. You want very quick responses. And as you think about like agentic workflows, you have some tasks that require reasoning, like tell me the next set of actions, or I'm going to build something that's going to think forward through the whole process, or analyze a large set of data that's been accumulated. But Flash is good for the quick decisions, right? Is this relevant or not? give me quick responses. And the quality of that, even in Gemini 2.0 Flash, was super impressive. They've also given the ability for people to tune how much thinking, the cost-efficient thinking is interesting. You can tune the thinking that you want it to do to speed up the response and or quality and balance that out. So that's a neat new feature that's coming out. And this is coming soon to AI Studio and Vertex AI and Gemini app. But focus on low latency, cost efficiency, and when I see workforce models, is probably the one that's going to be used for 80-90% of the things that you're doing in your task or your workflow. But 2.5 Pro will be used for the things that require like high accuracy and high performance like processing, like coding tasks, things like that. But this will be great for like fitting in like virtual assistants, real-time summarization, anything that you want to integrate into apps. It'll be a powerful model. So excited to see this coming. And again, the Flash models are like 10 times cheaper than the other competitors out there. So very cost effective to run.
Should be super useful for chatbots and stuff. I think like that's just going to make the UX experience a lot better, just due to that latency. It's going to be fast. Like a lot of times you get frustrated using these tools because they're slow and whatnot. But like the fact that they're focusing on the low latency part as well, pretty awesome.
But I'd recommend anybody to start with Gemini 2.0 right now, right? Like the Flash model that's out there for 2.0 is great and it's available. I would recommend like start building around that, knowing that 2.5 Flash is going to be better, more robust for, again, quick, efficient tasks. Imagen was interesting to see how Google's continuing to push forward image editing. So simple things like I want to go to the GCP and use Imagen. I can remove things from photos, right? It can do in painting, so it can remove items. It can add items back in, and it's significantly improved over what it did before. It also has the ability for you to continue to iterate on your prompts to get what you want. So they're spending a lot of time not just on the tooling, but the quality of the tools that they're putting out there. So from like a first-party tool standpoint, super impressive to see what you can create. I know like we played around with this a little bit with our MLB hackathon, and we were generating like, photorealistic images of ballparks from different perspectives so you could feel immersed. And it's a really powerful API for generating all kinds of image. And I think it's going to power like the next generation of like image editing capabilities. A lot of neat apps are going to come out of this.
Yeah, I'm just for a moment, like I know I can't make it too big on the webinar screen, but the little strawberry hummingbird is incredible. The detail, I mean, down to like the little like hairs that show up on it is just mind blowing. Super cool.
And also the depth of it, like you can really tell what's in the foreground and the background.
Yeah.
It really adds a lot.
It's got a great prompt too, which you can see down here in the corner. Yeah, that's major advancement. And for marketing people like me, it's nice to see something that's like, this looks really cool, and I can't tell that it's AI, which, this has not been the case for a while.
Yeah. And you think about like some of the, like your content generation for like digital assets, where people are doing photo shoots or trying to do all kinds of different things to get images that they want for marketing content, or even buying stock photos. This allows you to be way more creative than stock photos.
For sure.
I was really impressed by the in painting demo they showed with a guitar.
Yeah.
Oh, that was amazing.
Yeah, it's really high tech stuff. Out of my world, but I was very impressed by it.
So Chirp was interesting because Google had like their voice capabilities, and again we use this in the MLB hackathon where we were generating like announcer style voices using their like different voice models. But they're able now to allow you to create your own custom voice with just 10 seconds of input. So you can create synthetic voices that model whatever you want. Plus they've added in, which we saw before, like all the voices they were adding in of HD voices in multiple languages, which is interesting if you want to deploy content into, I would say like an accessible or culturally friendly format where you have people from different regions or spoken languages, not just having it say the words in Spanish, but have it say it with the Spanish accent, right? Be able to really reach your audiences with this. And it's great for voice attendants, great for like, any kind of like accessibility options. So really excited about the Chirp API and seeing Google kind of make this again, a competitive like first party service or tool that you can use inside of Google Cloud to generate all kinds of rich content.
Again, another one that's really useful for marketing people. Like, we're handling podcasts, or we want to go back and take our webinar that we're doing and try to remove all of the hosts' mispronunciations and stutters, things like that. Like, this is really significant. Or I think the best use case that you said there is like being able to take your content and present it in other languages, but not just, a robot voice that's reading Spanish, for example, but an actual Spanish like dialect.
Yeah. And these things
Super
really,
huge.
they stack on top of each other, right? So like you can be generating the scripts and audio plans from Gemini, but then you can be translating them through Chirp into any languages, right? So like again, the MLB app that we built was an interesting hackathon because that's what we were doing is generate an announcer script in any language you want to make it sound native friendly to whoever was listening, right? So there's as you stack the chirp or the image generation or the generative AI together, you start getting some really powerful creative options or some really immersive and rich content that you're putting out to your users. And that can be in your apps or that can be in, content that you're putting out for marketing, can be in just about anything.
Yeah. So you've heard John reference a couple of times this MLB tool that they built in which you can use AI to recreate the play-by-play. If you guys wanted to check that out, reach out to us. I think John would be happy to give you a tour. It's a great example of a use case of AI in tools like Chirp to be able to like take content that doesn't exist and create it from scratch and in context for people, which is significant.
So Lyria is something that DeepMind was working on before, which is generating music from text prompts. And I think this is interesting in the sense that it opens up new creative ways of creating music, maybe speeding up some of your music production, but generating sounds that maybe you didn't imagine or iterating on them. So these tools can be used for all kinds of things, prototyping, production quality type output. And one of the interesting things is that with Google, all the things they're building have this copyright indemnity. So anything that you create with the images or anything you create with the music, you have the copyright to, and you're protected from a legal standpoint from Google. Interesting that you get this high fidelity audio, that you get it integrated with the synth ID so you can watermark different parts of the audio. I played around with this a little bit, just creating different tunes, and it's a fun way to say, hey, I want to create, a beat in a style, maybe with these instruments, and have it start to generate the music from you, and then you can bring that into an audio editor, and then you can edit it and further refine it. So pretty neat, like that we're able to see, we talk about multimodal where Google's taking it, it's not just visual stuff, it's audio, it's everything across the board where generative AI is touching and allowing people to be more creative.
Lots of content, fun content generation tools. Again, marketer, love it. Easy stuff for me.
Not just the Promevo llama, but Meta's llama. So Google is very open with Vertex AI and the ability for you to have open source models. That's one of the things I love best about being able to go in there and have a model garden and serve up something that's not Gemini. If you want to compare and see how other ones perform against your prompts, or if you want to see if certain ones are better at different tasks, or maybe you don't need a massive model, maybe you just need a fine-tuned model of something else, you have the ability to get those deployed and serve them up just through the normal Vertex AI API. So Llama 4 is out. Very powerful models, Maverick, which is like their deep reasoning model, and Scout, which is their equivalent of Flash, but they can do things like image captioning, obviously text generation, assistance, chatbots, and super long context for Scout, 10 million tokens. So if you have a ton of data that you need to pump in there, multimodal as well, you could say, hey, like I have some very specific use case for maybe I'm publishing in every legal article ever into this model and I want some assessment of it. Maybe you could throw that kind of stuff at it. But the ability that Google's participating in the open source community, they also had a partnership with AI2. They have Anthropic models up there. They're just basically part of the community. They're not trying to push their models on you. They want to build the best ones. I'm sure they hope you use theirs, but you can, if you have a specific use case, use these other ones. And also that, maybe you have a specific use case where you're prototyping a building in Google Cloud, but ultimately you're going to host that model internally in a hybrid scenario, and you want to use Meta as your open source model. You have that capability. Very cool to see this stuff coming out. Very cool to see Meta continuing to iterate in the open source LLM arena. I think it's nice to have technology companies promoting and building open source around this, and it's not becoming private or exclusive. I think that's going to benefit us all, right? That's a great way for us all to continue to be able to embed AI into any application.
Yeah.
Consumers always win when there's competition.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in this case, collaboration alongside competition.
Yeah. And I also think it's a good show by Google to have confidence to expose these other models out there alongside of their flagship models. It shows that they know their stuff's good and they don't mind if you play around with other models from other companies and other sources. That's always a good thing to me if they're not restricting competition, just being real open about offerings.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I think all that is really because of Vertex AI. So they're building, I think, one of the best AI tooling platforms that exists, right? Allowing you to connect to other models, but tune your prompts, optimize your prompts automatically, host and fine tune all of these open models. Like they're building a lot of tooling around it. So some of the new things they talked about is better monitoring and control through dashboards. So you being able to see what's happening within your AI models, efficiency, responses, and be able to have sort of the ML ops portion of it. Like, okay, I built a production application, but how do I know this thing's doing what it's supposed to do, right? So Vertex AI is empowering people to do that. The customization and tuning, adding additional capabilities for auto-generating fine-tuning models, or even just saying, help me fine-tune the model parameters given my prompt, right? Like all of the things that you would need to do to really dial in your application, so you're not just throwing out a prompt and be like, I think I've got it right, or iterating on prompts and not really knowing you're going the right way. They're giving you a lot of power around that to make sure that you're getting it to the optimal state and then being able to maintain that optimal state after you've deployed it. Live API we talked about was pretty cool. The real-time multimodal capabilities, people doing sort of live interactive agents using AIs like backing it, right? So you can stream it sort of inputs. Like imagine like humans have visual and audio or other sensory input things that we see. You can basically treat the AI model that way. You can send it all these sensory inputs and give it some tasks for reasoning and get back the analysis and then use that to drive really dynamic real-time applications. And then this last point is kind of maybe sort of something that's overlooked is how do you make sure this thing doesn't break, right? So you set up a Vertex AI endpoint and you're talking to a server cluster in Chicago or the East Coast or Midwest. But this AI global endpoint allows you to make sure that one, it's efficiently routing AI requests to the servers that are closest or maybe being regionally tied based on data, but also allowing you to have that kind of load balancing so you don't end up worrying about your inference system going down. So pretty powerful stuff they're doing on the back end in terms of infrastructure as well. So I think like at the bottom, like this summarizes a lot of it. Like they're building a lot of great models, but they're also just serving up the power to Vertex AI as a platform.
Which, by the way, for those of you who maybe you're not on the developer side, but you're curious, like what's the difference between Vertex versus Gemini versus all these other models? Go to Promevo.com. We have a ton of articles and a ton of content on our blog where we explain pretty much all of this stuff. And happy to walk you through it. Even better, just reach out to us at Promevo.com and like you'll get someone like Aaron or even John on the phone with you to just take you through it. Just a little quick spiel there.
So I saved this part for last. So everybody's been talking about agentic workflows this year. Like, okay, I want to have this, what does that even mean? And there's lots of questions about like, what does an agentic workflow mean? But basically you have something where you have agents potentially interacting with other agents. So you've built an AI that responds given some instructions to some input and gives an output. And you have other AIs that can interact with them as tools. But when that happens, you can end up with some very interesting interactions between the systems. You also have the ability now with so many different frameworks to have different agents communicate in different ways. And so what Google's done is they've invested and filled a gap with their agent development kit. One, they've made it easier to define an agent, which is basically just a prompt, some tools it can use, and a model that you want it to use, which doesn't have to be Gemini, it can be any model. Two, they've made it can work with model context protocol, which is something that's been emerging as like the leading way for sending data back and forth between tools and models and be able to access things like, think about MCPs as the interface to your APIs, and those APIs you want to have a standard way to talk to an agent to give data back. So it simplifies all of the development of building these. It allows you to quickly spin them up and build tools, and they have a way for you to deploy and test and debug them, which again gives you a full software development kit around agents. Because otherwise, sometimes the debugging and the deployment can be up to you, and it can be difficult or inconsistent about how you go about it. But they also complete that whole life cycle. They showed like a great video here of like, oh, I deployed my agent, now I go to logs, and now I can investigate an error that came about, and then it suggests code changes somewhere in a tool that the agent is using that would fix the problem. So they have this complete life cycle that they're showing of how they intend you to be able to kind of rapidly build and iterate on these, and all the nice things we're used to having for every other language. They're starting to see these frameworks and things emerge for developers when it comes to agentic software development.
Speaking back to that big picture point, I feel like for developers, this was where a lot of the talk was focusing on. Just the whole concept of the entire multi-agent workflow, building a mature development kit, like all of that stuff seems to be where all roads are leading to at the end of the day for developers.
And you're starting to see some strong statements publicly from people like the CEO of Shopify, where they're saying like, no new investments in people unless you can prove that you can't do this with AI. And so if you gave an AI agent the capabilities with tools and access to things, could it replace the need for us to add this person? And so you're going to see more and more of a focus and more push for developers to be able to build out these systems that can automate more of the internal processes. Because we see it everywhere, like everywhere, every customer you talk to, even like at Promevo, like we have things that people do that are just, consistent, click the box, move the data, make a request, things like that, would improve the quality of life of the employees if you could automate them. So really cool to see Google invest in the ability to make this easier for developers to go about building and maintaining.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point too, like to make about, it's not about replacing employees, it's about replacing inefficiencies and processes that are painful or kind of a time waste for employees, like focus them on their best work.
Yep.
All right, sorry, go ahead, John.
I think there was one more on agent after the agent development kit that I was.
That's right. I'm sorry.
Agent to agent protocol. So this is another investment from Google that what they're intending is to have an open protocol so you can have any agent talk to any agent no matter how you built it. Right. So the interoperability of allowing people to use different frameworks to build their agents, but having a protocol that can allow them to still work together through like your agent development kit or something else is going to be really powerful. Also allow you potentially, if you're supporting agent-to-agent protocol, to plug those agents into Google technology stack. So you think about the tight integration Google's having with their different agents that they're building, Gemini and other things, gems, all the stuff that's coming out of there. Allowing third parties to easily build something that'll be compatible is important because it'll, again, reinforce this open ecosystem that Google's building. And I think you see some of that too in their agent marketplace they put up on GCP. So you can kind of readily buy and enable agents from third parties. So really neat to see them continue to invest in just, how do we, not just like how do you build an agent, but how do you build an ecosystem that allows people to kind of quickly build and scale long term and then have this successful implementation, right? I think it took a long time for everybody to get through the first year of just integrating AI into their business and maybe building some AI API kind of workflows. But now we're starting to look at this more complex. These things are always talking to each other for complex tasks. So having more frameworks and stability around it's important.
Love it. Yeah, fleshing out like the ecosystem, not just like we said at the beginning, not just here is a prompt and have it write an email for me, but now we're getting into like deep business integrations, getting agents to work together. Yeah, I mean, just a ton. And this is only a fraction of what Google announced around AI last week. Let's transition now into Agentspace / Google Workspace. Mark, do you want to, I think Agentspace is something a lot of our viewers here have probably heard about or heard at least a rumor about. A lot of discussion about it at Google Next. Do you want to talk us through some of it?
Yeah, absolutely. Agentspace, Google has developed a place. Agentspace is basically a single space where employees of your company can access their agents. They could build these agents. They could be agents that your company has purchased or agents that your company has built. What's really cool is these agents can even interact with other agents and so forth. And what it does is it gives your employees a way to access data. They can access, I believe there's over 300 different apps that they can connect to. You can enable things like Salesforce, Jira, Okta, and have access to all of that information. And that allows users to really just conduct better research. They're able to analyze, pull data down from different apps that are all connected. So everything would be integrated through the use of these agents. And then the agents would not only be able to access and analyze that information, synthesize that information, and get you, reports and visibility on what you need to see, but they can take actions on your behalf as well. Some of those actions could be like, once they have the information, the agent can be directed to maybe draft a message to somebody or send a notification to a chat space or an email or something like that. So it really helps with a lot of the repetitive tasks. I think I saw a few demos where these tasks were roles such as like a call center type of role, where oftentimes there would be an employee that was receiving a call, receiving a trouble ticket, and they had to access maybe their ticketing system, and kind of like review their processes, and then the agent would automatically send a response out to the client. So it's very cool, very powerful. And then on the next slide, Google has released two agents that they're kind of like Google built agents that they're providing, or they're going to release these, I think, towards in the coming months. The first one is this idea generation agent, and this is great. This is a way for you to develop interesting novel ideas. You can use it as your brainstorming assistant. You can come up with these very interesting ideas. It kind of categorizes them together, and you can based on your criteria, you can evaluate these ideas and find out which idea fits best for the solution that you're trying to get to. But yeah, this agent in itself is it looked to be very powerful, and I can't wait to use it. If you need to just generate a cool idea, this would be like your assistant for that. And then the next agent that they have is the deep research agent, and this one is very cool. This is where you can actually, if you have something a little where you need to research a little bit more deeply than just using the Flash model, you can actually access this agent. It's for very deep research on very complex topics. And as Aaron had pointed out earlier, what's nice about this is it gives you kind of a study plan of what sources it's going to be researching for you. It's typically a long list of sources where it would take a regular person, just a lot of time to go through each of the sources. But what it does is it analyzes all the sources for you. It does take a little bit more time than the Flash model, but much more quickly, of course, than you having to do it yourself. And then what it produces is this comprehensive, easy to read report. And the whole report is there are citations included all throughout the report. So as Aaron pointed out, you can hover over or even click on a citation. It'll take you to exactly where that citation was referencing, and you'll have the opportunity to review it yourself to make sure that it's not hallucinating, and that the information that you have in your final report is relevant to what you were actually going for initially. So that's very cool. And then on going forward. Oh, go ahead.
Just one second. I think, Aaron, did you want to jump in and add a comment there?
I just wanted to say before you wrapped up on Agentspace, Mark, one of the cool things that they really showed was all the connectors they have available to these third-party sources. And it was super impressive, like telling your agent what to do based on the functionality the connectors have right now. And just thinking about how that can expand in the future. Because right now the connectors, they're new, right? All they're going to do is get better, add more functionality. So like you mentioned earlier, like they can help you iterate, they can move you on to the next step, they can shoot the email off. Well, eventually they're going to be able to do a lot more things based on the power of the connectors that are built for the system for Agentspace.
That's absolutely right. It seemed like in the demos, like there was extra space for additional actions. I can't say for sure if they're going to, what they're going to build in there, but it looks like they left room for growth. And they even have a custom connector. So if your app isn't on the list, there should be a way to just to configure a custom way to connect to it.
That's a good idea, Mark.
100%. This right here is exciting.
Moving on to Workspace. So this is really great. Google has released for their Google Workspace a number of things. I think one of the coolest things was this they call it Google Workspace Flows. And what it is a automation sequence that you can configure. So you can configure it as a multi-step sequence. So what it does is as you go through the configuration, you can set the triggers. A trigger could be something like you received a message or somebody filled out a survey form and then you receive that. And then once this is triggered, you can configure actions to happen like in sort of a sequence. Some things that you can do. Well, basically, AI is going to initially take in the intake, whatever your trigger is. It's going to analyze that. It's going to generate content for you to review, and then from there, if you wanted to, you can also add in those additional actions, such as sending notifications, maybe writing out an email response. And then what's cool is you can also utilize gems with this. So if you had a gem that, for instance, if you had it configured to send out an email response, if you wanted to send it through a gem, the gem, if you had it pre-configured to say, when you send a response, it's going to reference something like a email style guide, you can send your response according to how you want your voicing for that message to be. So it's really cool that you can tie all of these in together, creating a workflow from end to end, really reducing a lot of that overhead from your actual employee having to do a lot of that repetitive work. So really excited to see when this comes out.
This is really cool. And in particular, like some of these cross-platform, like this one, or I guess you can see my mouse, hopefully you can, where it's Gmail, Gemini, and chat, to where like you're surfacing information to an employee in the channel that they prefer, but also like enriching that information through Gemini. Yeah, this is like massive. And someone that's not very technically minded like me, I don't have to build this. It's literally in a like pre-built formula for me. So super excited about that.
And then for some of the other announcements that they've made in Google Docs, now they have the ability to include audio. So what's really cool is you can have an audio version of your documents. So just get that audio version, kind of make your own audio book for yourself, maybe listen to that on the go or something. And also podcast style overview, similar to if you've played around with Notebook LM, where it's two presenters and they're talking back and forth and maybe kind of persuading you one way or the other on a topic. That's going to be what's also included in Google Docs. So it's very cool. And I hope they also integrate this with Chirp's ability to create your own voicing. So that would be very interesting. Maybe you can have it be read in your voice, or maybe somebody famous like James Earl Jones or something like that. That would be very cool. But so yeah, can't wait to play with this when it comes out.
Darth Vader voice reading your internal company memo. Love it.
That would be amazing. And then another feature in Docs is this Help Me Refine feature. It's really cool. If you highlight a section of your content and then you hit refine writing, it's gonna do things like offer thoughtful suggestions. It can strengthen your argument, make your point of view more persuasive, or you can use it to clarify key points, summarize. So the idea here isn't just to like fix up your document. It's really to help communicate more effectively. It can do things like change all of the formatting of what you're saying and all of the voicing to be just very consistent. So that should be a nice feature for a lot of people. And especially if you're working on a document, multiple people are collaborating on one document, this kind of makes everything really consistent if you were to run this through the document. All right. And then in the next slide, Google Sheets. So Google Sheets has had Gemini side panel in it. Previously, you could not actually put in a chart or anything like that. You can make tables, but not charts. Recently, they did add the ability to put in charts, and now this moves that to the next level. So now with Help Me Analyze in Google Sheets, you're able to look at a data set, and then it's going to give you an expert level analysis with not just charts, but interactive charts. So you can move things around, you could change the settings, and it really gives you a different way to look at the data. So those people who charting is the way that they understand data a little bit better. It's a really great way to understand that data with the use of charts. It'll help you identify trends, and then it also suggests some next steps to take. So this is going to be very, very helpful, and I think a game changer for those of you who use Sheets in your roles.
I'm really excited about that, and getting like connected sheets and being able to do the analysis sort of on the fly without having to configure any BI. Just have the data and start finding information. Super cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Massive.
Yeah, finance teams, I think, will love that. All right, and then the last thing here is in Google Chats. This is a cool feature. As you're chatting in a chat space, if you wanted to access Gemini very quickly, you would simply type in @Gemini and then put in some kind of command. You can see that in there, it's in this example, it's summarized this discussion as a table. So you can get a summary, like either as a paragraph. In this case, they're asking for a table. So you can have it in different formats. You can have it highlight key points and also suggest next steps or suggest reply, suggest actions to take. So this is going to be really nice and really augment the way you communicate in chat spaces.
Fabulous. Just so much useful stuff. I mean, again, this is what we talked about at the beginning. Google taking AI from, well, we have AI that will generate an email to like actually putting it into practice and imbuing it into their products like Google Workspace and Google Sheets, where, not everyone understands the language of spreadsheets, marketing guy included, and being able to, without having to be a Sheets expert or like, a spreadsheet expert, to be able to generate those sort of like important outputs in charts and graphs, something that like everyone understands is just, it's massive and super exciting stuff. We're coming up on time, so apologize, Aaron, we're going to squeeze you in here. Let's talk about data analytics and Looker and BigQuery and that part of Google next.
Yes. As always, in the recent months, in the recent events, everything's heavily focused on AI. But when I attend these type of events, I like to keep my ears perked for things that relate to analytics, BI tools, just the other things that currently exist in Google's world and exist for many analysts and users of data. So I just wanted to point out a couple things that were really cool that I saw. We're going to start with conversational analytics first, because to me, this has been a topic that's been kicked around by a lot of different companies for a lot of years. Like I remember, years ago, Tableau kicking around their Einstein conversational type of tool. Didn't quite hit the mark, but it seems like this type of tool is maturing to a point where it's actually real now. It's tangible. It exists. If you go into Looker now, I don't know if it's rolled out to everybody yet, but I have seen this in some of the newer versions. The conversational analytics piece is there. And they've actually done a really good job presenting the tool. It's built, I don't know how familiar you guys are with Looker, but data is organized into sets called explorers. The conversational piece kind of centers around that. So it tells you to select which explorer you want to ask questions to. And then from there it provides, it has some sample questions you can ask of the explorer to get started. But one thing I really think Looker does really well, and this is probably why everything works, is because of the underlying LookML model. It's kind of feeding all that information, which is essentially a diagram of the data, into the language models. So I think asking a language model to just build SQL on the fly, the code that populates these reports on the fly, is difficult. But the LookML code, just by default, it's essentially a small data dictionary. It's got everything defined. It's got a lot of metadata. You can put descriptions on everything. And how everything is related to each other, all the pieces are related in your data, it's all defined there. So I think that's really why they're able to bring that to the conversational part of Looker. They're able to, have you just type natural language questions, generate charts, see insights in the data, quickly build reports. It's just really cool to see how it's evolved to this point. And there's a lot of integration too now with Looker Studio, which I feel has a lot more of a robust visual library than Looker Core, Looker Original. So they're really bringing the best of both worlds from both products into the conversational analytics part of Looker. And one last thing for Looker before I go, for any of you LookML developers out there, they showed us previews of the code completion, which was not in LookML developer tools before. So I think, to me, that I've been waiting for that for years, for months. Now we're actually going to get that part. It's been code complete. I'm kind of spoiled by it. All the other languages, it's built into VS Code. it's in the BigQuery console, but now it's going to be in LookML. So as a BI guy, I'm excited for that part of it. Another announcement that's coming, I think they mentioned later on in the year, is object table querying within BigQuery. Now, to boil this down, this is going to be a way to easily ask questions and query your unstructured data. So think things in your cloud storage buckets. So if you've got files in cloud storage buckets, right now it's very difficult to combine that to tables in BigQuery. They're different things. One is a very structured set of rows and columns of data, right? BigQuery tables, you think of the classic, spreadsheet style view with rows and columns. And then you've got your data in storage buckets, which can look like everything. It can be, text files, it can be audio, images, videos, whatever you want to throw in a bucket. Those two worlds have been hard to marry for the longest time. But the object tables is giving you that ability to build queries where you can reference objects that live in your storage buckets within BigQuery. And that's kind of major, because you're not having to take the data, embed everything, store it in BigQuery. You can leave everything in your storage buckets and now write queries directly, in BigQuery. And this just makes your data enrichment processes much better. You don't have to, waste space, waste time moving everything around, having outdated data. You're querying everything directly to the source. So they showed us a lot of cool tools, a lot of cool new BigQuery functions that will allow you to do these semantic joins. So you've got a bunch of reviews in a bucket, right? Say you just want the positive reviews. You can build your query to only capture the objects with positive reviews and then enhance that data set with everything that's in your existing BigQuery tables. So I don't know how cool that sounds to you guys, but for me, for a data engineer who just loves when you can combine data sets and make them useful to external users, it's music to my ears to see this new functionality coming in, and I hope it gets here soon. We've got a lot of buckets.
I'm excited about that for like the embeddings, like this easy embeddings, and imagining around like image data and things like that, where it's like I have a bunch of image files off somewhere and I want to just be able to say, show me the ones that look like this, and then be able to join that to like more data. That's all really cool stuff.
We're going to be able to cut steps out of that pipeline. Like right now we have to go scan the bucket. Are there any changes? Take that data, put it in BigQuery. Well, is there already data for that image in BigQuery? Like there's a lot of things that are going to be totally eliminated once you can query objects directly in the buckets. So I'm pumped for that.
Well, this has been super helpful. We have come up to the hour. If you have questions or things that you want to know, or you want to like try some of this stuff, reach out to us. Go to promevo.com and fill out the contact form, and we will be in touch. If you're a client, feel free to contact our support team or your account manager, and we'll make sure that you have access to this stuff as soon as you can. So for those of you that aren't, John, like what would you say, like why Promevo, like what is our role in all of this Google stuff? If you want to wrap us up here with just like, why should you work with Promevo for this stuff?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we showed the llamas, like we're here to kind of be your Chirp or your guide to help you with anything Google related. Specifically this year, everybody's very excited about Agentspace. So are we. We have workshops and pilots that we can enable and get you started to help you figure out how to get that working in your organization. And some people talked about like ServiceNow and Jira connectors and things like that. If you want us to help you figure out how to get connected and how to set it up and be successful, we can help you with that. If you have other ideas of just us helping you, we can be your productivity bridge for other solutions. Say you want a custom agent, or you want something built for a custom solution using any of the AI tools. We're here to help you build those out, whether that's getting the data stuff, all the steps Baron talked about, or any of the other things that are out there in the Google 100%. Ecosystem. We're here to help you. So we want to be your partner. We work with a lot of other clients pretty happy with us. We'd like to be, make you work with us as well and be happy with us.
That's a great summation. That's a great spot to end it. Work with Promevo. We know all of this stuff so that you don't have to. And again, this is a fraction of the 220 something announcements that Google made last week. So we have teams that are digging into every aspect of it and are ready to help it imbue itself into your business. So with that, Thank you to everyone out there watching, and thank you to everyone in the future that is watching this on demand. We appreciate your time, as always. Mark, John, Aaron, I appreciate you all. Thank you for your investment and your knowledge and for sharing it with everybody. I think with that, we'll call it a wrap. Happy Tuesday. We will see you all soon. Take care.